Welcome guys to my channel Data Science Preparation Hub. So this video is on lecture 3 frequency distribution types and construction. So if you have not yet watched the introduction to statistics and basic terminologies, please do watch them. Yeah, and let's get started. So firstly, what is frequency and frequency distribution? So frequency means, from the meaning itself, it is the number of times the particular value is occurred in the data set. Whereas frequency distribution means we are trying to classify the raw data into a group, that is called as frequency distribution. And moving to the next, what is types of frequency distribution? So generally we have like 7 types of frequency distribution. They are like simple frequency distribution, relative frequency distribution, percentage frequency distribution, cumulative frequency distribution, etc. So many. So we will be discussing only the important one, that is simple frequency distribution and cumulative frequency distribution. So firstly, what is simple frequency distribution? In simple frequency distribution, we have like raw or ungrouped frequency. For example, like marks of students. So they are not into any group. So they are raw in the form of frequency distribution. And next is like discrete frequency distribution. So for example, like number of children. So discrete means they can only be in integers. For example, like number of children, then number of plants, etc. So they are all the example of discrete frequency distribution. Whereas continuous frequency distribution, they will be in both in integers as well as decimals, fractions, etc. So for example, like marks of students and like weight, height, so they are all example of continuous frequency distribution. And moving to the next is frequency table. So how is a frequency table formed? So let's see them. So firstly, discrete frequency distribution. So this is the frequency table of discrete frequency distribution. So now we we will understand how to create a frequency table as well. So here in this, it is a discrete frequency distribution table, right? So this is a kind of a raw data. We are trying to make them into a frequency. So this is a number of children. So 0 is occurred only once, so it is 1. So 1 is occurred thrice, so it is 3. So this is the case how we represent the frequency with the help of tally. And this is the case of continuous frequency distribution. So as we already know that continuous frequency distribution, they always will be in a range, right? So we are representing in the form of class interval. So we will understand what is class interval as well. So there is an interval between the observations. So that is called as class interval. That means the size. So 0 to 25. So how many values are in between 0 to 25? There are 2. Then 25 to 50, there are 3. So on. So this is the way of frequency table of the continuous frequency distribution. And moving to the next, cumulative frequency distribution. So cumulative means, from the meaning itself, so we are trying to find the cumulative values, that is for example, if you see the table, so here this is the class interval, tally and frequency, and we are trying to find the cumulative frequency. So the first value will be the same, and second value will be the sum of the second and first value, and whereas third value will be the sum of all the 3, like first, second and third, and fourth value will be the sum of all the 4. So this is how we find the cumulative frequency. And moving to the next is terminologies in frequency distribution. So there are important terminologies to understand, like class interval, class limit, range and midpoint. So first, what is class interval? So interval means there is a range, right? So that means the size of each group, that is called as interval. So that means, for example, like we are having 50 to 75. So how many values are in between 50 to 75? 25, right? So 25 is a class interval. So 75 to 100, there is a 25 is the size in between this 100 to 125, 25 is the size in between, so they are called as the class interval. So the size of the that is the how many number of values are there between this range, so it is called as class interval. Next is class limit. So class limit means they have the upper and lower limit. That means, for example, like we are having 50 to 100, so the minimum and maximum value, that is called as a limit. So 50 is the lowest value and 100 is the highest. So they are called as the higher limit and lower limit. And next is range. Range is nothing but the difference between maximum minus minimum. That means the largest minus smallest. Whereas midpoint is the average of the middle class interval. That is the center point of a class interval is called the mid value or midpoint. So how do we find this? It's like by adding upper and lower limit divided by the sum, divided by 2. And next is the steps for constructing continuous frequency distribution. So we are looking into continuous frequency distribution. So the steps are like, firstly we should find the number of observation. Secondly, find the number of classes using the formula 2.5 into n to the power 1 by 4. N is nothing but the number of observation in a raw data. And the class interval, how you find is like highest value minus smallest value divided by number of classes. So this is an example of height of planes. So this is a kind of continuous frequency distribution, right? So height of planes. So this is a raw data, and we want to make them into a frequency table. There is a continuous frequency table. For that, firstly we should find this calculation. First we should find number of observations. So there are 15 observation, and number of classes. Number of classes means this, like 1, 2. Here there are 2 classes, first 0 to 5 and 5 to 10. So there are 2 classes. That is the number of classes. To find that, we have the formula 2.5 into n. N is nothing but 15 to the power 1 by 4. That is nothing but 2.47. When we round, we get 2. And class interval is nothing but highest minus lowest divided by number of classes. Highest value is 10 minus lowest value is 0 divided by 2. That is nothing but 5. So class interval will be 5. That means class interval means the size, like how many values should contain in a particular class. So 0 to 5 there are 5 values, 5 to 10 there are 5 values. So that is called as class interval. So first we will have the column called class interval, and we type and we try to use tally mark and frequency column. So firstly, like we should decide the number of classes. So it is 2, right? So there will be 2 classes. And next is the class interval. So what should be the interval? That should be 5. So our value starts from 0, right? So 0 to 5 will be one class interval, and next 5 to 10 will be the other class interval. And we should find this tally mark, like how many values are there between 0 to 5. So there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 values are there between 0 to 5, and 5 to 10 there are like 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5, right? So 5. So total is 15. So this is an example of continuous frequency table. So that's all in construction of frequency table, that is continuous frequency table, and the terminologies, etc. So yeah, thanks for watching. Please do like, share, comment and subscribe.